when my brother called me at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday morning and said, "I saw your wife at the airport yesterday. She was holding hands with some guy, and they boarded a flight to Miami together." I laughed. I actually laughed out loud. "That's impossible," I told him. "She's at her sister's funeral in Ohio. She left 3 days ago." The silence on the other end of the phone lasted maybe 5 seconds, but those 5 seconds changed everything. "I'm sending you a photo," my brother said. I took it because I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. "But it's her. I'm sorry. My name is Harold. I'm 63 years old. I spent 41 years building a construction company from nothing. Started with a pickup truck and a toolbox. Ended up with 200 employees and contracts across 3 states. I retired 2 years ago, handed the company over to my son-in-law because my daughter begged me to give him a chance. She said he was smart. She said he was ambitious. She said he would make us proud. I should have listened to my gut." The photo arrived on my phone while I was still holding it to my ear. I opened it with my thumb, and there she was, my wife of 38 years, Barbara, standing in the terminal at O'Hare, her hand wrapped around the arm of a man I had never seen before. They were smiling at each other like teenagers, like they shared a secret the whole world was too stupid to understand. "Harold? Are you still there?" I wasn't there. Not really. My body was standing in my kitchen, looking out at the backyard where we had celebrated our 35th wedding anniversary. But my mind was somewhere else entirely. It was racing through 38 years of memories, looking for the cracks, looking for the lies, looking for the moment when the woman I loved had become a stranger. "I'll call you back," I said. I didn't call him back for 3 days. Those 3 days were the loneliest of my life. Barbara was supposed to return from Ohio on Friday. Her sister, Patricia, had died of cancer, and the funeral was on Wednesday. At least, that's what Barbara had told me. She had cried when she got the call. Real tears. I had held her in my arms and told her everything would be okay. I had booked her flight myself. But now, I was looking at that flight confirmation, and I noticed something I had missed before. The return date was wrong. It was scheduled for Monday, not Friday. 5 extra days that she had never mentioned. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed to understand what I was dealing with. My brother offered to help, but I told him to stay out of it. This was my problem, my marriage, my betrayal to uncover. I hired a private investigator instead, a woman named Sandra Chen, who came recommended by my lawyer. She was expensive, thorough, and utterly without sentiment. Exactly what I needed. "I'll have preliminary results within a week," she told me. "But I should warn you, in my experience, when a spouse is hiding something this big, it's rarely just an affair. There's usually money involved." I didn't believe her. Barbara had never cared about money. She had married me when I was broke, supported me through 15 years of struggle before the company finally took off. She had never asked for jewelry or fancy cars or a bigger house. She was content with what we had. At least that's what I thought. Barbara came home on Friday, just as she had promised. She looked tired, sad, grieving. She hugged me at the door and told me how hard the funeral had been, how Patricia's children were devastated, how she wished I could have been there with her. I held her and said nothing. I breathed in the scent of her hair and tried to recognize the woman in my arms. But all I could see was the photo. Her hand on another man's arm, her smile, that secret smile. "I missed you," she said. "I missed you too," I lied. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in performance. I smiled when she smiled. I laughed when she laughed. I made love to her twice, which took every ounce of willpower I possessed. I watched her go about her daily routine, looking for signs of deception, and found none. She was the same Barbara she had always been, loving, attentive, present. It was terrifying. Sandra Chen called me on a Monday afternoon. I was in my home office, pretending to read the newspaper. "We need to meet," she said. "Today, if possible. And you should bring your lawyer." My lawyer was a man named Richard Hastings. We had known each other for 30 years. He had handled my business contracts, my real estate deals, my estate planning. He had met Barbara at 100 dinner parties and always commented on what a lovely couple we made. We met at his office at 4 o'clock. Sandra was already there, sitting at the conference table with a folder that was at least 3 inches thick. "Before I show you this," she said, "I want to prepare you. What I've found goes far beyond infidelity. This is systematic financial fraud, spanning at least 5 years. Your wife is not who you think she is." Richard poured me a glass of water. I didn't touch it. "Show me," I said. The man's name was Vincent Russo. He was 57 years old, a former real estate developer from New Jersey who had lost his license after a fraud conviction in 2015. He had served 18 months in federal prison for wire fraud and money laundering. He was charming, handsome, and completely without conscience. Barbara had met him at a charity gala 6 years ago. I remembered that gala. I had been sick with the flu and couldn't attend. Barbara had gone alone, wearing the emerald dress I had bought her for our anniversary. She had come home late, glowing, and told me what a wonderful time she had. That was the night it all started. Sandra laid out the evidence methodically: bank statements, property records, flight manifests, hotel receipts, text messages that made my stomach turn. Barbara and Vincent had been conducting an affair for 6 years, meeting in cities across the country whenever she invented a reason to travel. Her sister's funeral had been real, but she had left Ohio after one day and flown to Miami with Vincent, where they had spent 5 nights at a resort that cost $800 a night. But the affair was only the beginning. "Your wife has been moving money out of your joint accounts for the past 5 years, Sandra said. "Small amounts at first, a few thousand here and there, but it's accelerated recently. In the last 18 months, she's transferred nearly $400,000 to accounts in her name only. Accounts you didn't know existed." I felt something shift inside me, a door closing, a light going out. "There's more," Richard said. His face was pale. "Sandra found something else, something that involves your daughter. My daughter, my only child, my reason for getting up in the morning after I retired. She was 35 years old, married to a man named Derek, who ran my company now. They had 2 children, my grandchildren, the lights of my life." "What about my daughter?" I asked. Sandra pulled out another folder. "Derek isn't just your son-in-law. He's Vincent Russo's nephew." The room tilted. I grabbed the edge of the table. Derek's mother was Vincent's sister. She died when Derek was young, and Vincent essentially raised him. They've been planning this together from the beginning. Derek didn't meet your daughter by accident. He targeted her. The whole relationship was designed to gain access to your company and your family. I thought about Derek. The first time I met him, at a barbecue my daughter had thrown. He had been so charming, so eager to please. He had asked me questions about my business with what seemed like genuine interest. When he proposed to my daughter, he had asked my permission first. Old-fashioned, I thought. Respectful. It was all an act. Every smile, every handshake, every moment of connection we had shared over the past 8 years was a lie. "The company," I said. "What has he done to my company?" Richard looked like he might be sick. "I've been going through the books since Sandra first contacted me. Derek has been siphoning money for at least 3 years. Fake vendor payments, inflated contractor invoices, shell companies that exist only on paper. He's taken over $2 million, and he's positioned himself to take much more. $2 million, 41 years of work, blood and sweat and sacrifice. And this man, this creature my daughter had married, was stealing it piece by piece." "Does my daughter know?" I asked. Sandra shook her head. "I don't believe so. Everything I've seen suggests she's as much a victim as you are. Derek has kept her completely in the dark." I sat in that conference room for 3 hours. We went through every document, every record, every piece of evidence that Sandra had gathered. By the end, I understood the full scope of what had been done to me. Barbara and Vincent had been planning to leave the country. They had purchased a property in Costa Rica, paid for with money Barbara had stolen from our accounts. They had airline tickets booked for 3 weeks from now. One-way tickets. They were going to vanish, taking $400,000 of my money with them. Derek's plan was more ambitious. He was working to transfer ownership of the company to himself, using forged documents that bore my signature. He had a contact at the bank who was helping him. In 6 months, he would own everything I had built, And then he would sell it and disappear, just like his uncle. My wife and my son-in-law, working together, stealing from me, destroying my family, and they thought I was too old and too trusting to notice. They were wrong. I drove home that night with a plan already forming in my mind. I had 38 years of experience running a business. I knew how to manage a crisis. I knew how to handle difficult employees. I knew how to cut a cancer out of an organization before it could spread. This was no different. Barbara and Derek were a cancer, and I was going to remove them surgically. The hardest part was the waiting. I had to be patient. I had to gather more evidence. I had to make sure that when I struck, they would have no way to escape the consequences. I started with Derek. I called him into my home office on a Saturday afternoon, under the pretense of discussing some concerns about the company. "I've been looking at the quarterly reports," I said. "Something seems off." I watched his face carefully. He was good, I had to admit. His expression showed nothing but attentive concern. "What do you mean?" he asked. "The vendor payments seem high, especially for the Henderson project." A flicker of something in his eyes. Fear? Anger? It was gone before I could identify it. "I can look into that," he said. "Probably just some billing errors." "I'm sure it is," I said. "But I'd like to do a full audit, just to be safe. I'll have Richard's firm handle it." The pause was almost imperceptible, but I saw it, the moment of calculation, the predator assessing his prey. "Of course," Derek said. "Whatever makes you comfortable." He left my office 30 minutes later, and I knew he would be on the phone with Vincent within the hour. I was counting on it. I wanted them to panic. I wanted them to make mistakes. The next phase was Barbara. I told her I wanted to take a trip, just the two of us. A cruise through the Caribbean, leaving in 2 weeks. "But you hate cruises," she said, surprised. "I've changed my mind. We're getting older. We should enjoy life while we can. What do you say?" She hesitated. I could see the conflict on her face. The trip I was proposing would overlap with her planned escape to Costa Rica. "I don't know," she said. "I'm not feeling well. Maybe we should wait." "We've been waiting for 38 years, I said. "I'm tired of waiting." She said she would think about it. That night, I heard her whispering on the phone in the bathroom. I didn't need to listen. I knew who she was talking to. I knew what they were discussing. I was forcing them to accelerate their timeline, pushing them toward a mistake. It came 3 days later. Derek called me at the office. His voice was strained, urgent. "I need you to sign some documents," he said. "It's time sensitive. A new contract that could be worth millions." "Can it wait? I'm busy." "No, I need your signature today. I'll bring the papers to your house this evening." I agreed, and then I called Richard and told him to be ready. Derek arrived at 7 o'clock with a folder full of documents. I recognized the format immediately. They were transfer agreements, ownership documents, the forged papers Sandra had warned me about. "What is this?" I asked, pretending to read. "Just standard paperwork," Derek said. "For the new contracts." I looked up at him. This man who had married my daughter, who had bounced my grandchildren on his knee, who had called me dad at Christmas dinners and birthdays. "You know," I said, "when I started my company, I had nothing, no money, no connections, no education, just a willingness to work harder than anyone else. And I learned something important in those early years." Derek shifted uncomfortably. "What's that?" I learned to recognize a con man. The color drained from his face, but he recovered quickly. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I think you do. I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. I think you and your Uncle Vincent have been planning this for years. I think you targeted my daughter, wormed your way into my family, and started stealing from me the moment you had the chance." He stood up. His hands were shaking. "This is insane. You're paranoid. I'm going to call the police." "Please do," I said. "In fact, they're already on their way. Richard called them an hour ago." The documents on the table, the ones Derek had brought for me to sign, were sitting there between us. Evidence of attempted fraud, forgery, theft. Derek ran. He made it as far as the driveway before the police cars pulled in. I watched from the window as they put him in handcuffs, as they read him his rights, as they took away the man who had tried to destroy everything I had built. Barbara wasn't home when it happened. She had gone to visit a friend, but I knew where she really was. Sandra had been tracking her movements for weeks. The police found her at a hotel 30 miles away, meeting with Vincent Russo. They arrested both of them on charges of fraud, conspiracy, and theft. Vincent tried to run. He didn't make it far. Barbara didn't try to run at all. She just sat there, staring at the wall, as if she couldn't understand how everything had fallen apart so quickly. I didn't go to see her. I didn't answer her calls. Her lawyer reached out to Richard, asking if I would be willing to discuss a settlement. I told Richard to tell them no. There would be no settlements, no plea bargains, no mercy. They had shown me no mercy. I would return the favor. The hardest conversation I had in those dark weeks was with my daughter. I drove to her house on a Sunday morning, 3 days after Derek's arrest. She was sitting on the couch, holding my grandchildren, looking like someone who had just woken up from a nightmare. "Dad," she said when she saw me, "tell me it's not true. Tell me Derek didn't do this." I sat down next to her. I took her hand, and I told her the truth. All of it. About Derek, about her mother, about the 6 years of lies and betrayal that had been happening right under our noses. She cried, she screamed, she threw things, and then she collapsed in my arms, and I held her the way I had held her when she was a little girl, afraid of thunderstorms. "How could she do this?" she whispered. "How could Mom do this to us?" I didn't have an answer. I still don't. My daughter filed for divorce the next week. Derek tried to fight for custody of the children, but no judge was going to give visitation rights to a man facing federal fraud charges. He was convicted 8 months later, 10 years in federal prison. His uncle Vincent got 12. Barbara took a plea deal, 5 years. I heard she's at a minimum security facility in West Virginia. I don't write to her. I don't visit. My lawyer handles the divorce proceedings. I have nothing to say to her that hasn't already been said. The company survived. Richard helped me untangle the damage Derek had done. It took over a year, and we lost some clients who didn't want to be associated with the scandal. But the core of the business was sound. 41 years of hard work couldn't be erased by 3 years of treachery. I promoted my longtime operations manager to CEO, a woman named Patricia who had been with me since the beginning. She's doing a better job than Derek ever did. The company is growing again, thriving, even. My daughter moved back in with me for a while. She and the children lived in the house where she grew up, and slowly, painfully, we rebuilt our lives together. She's seeing a therapist now. She's started to smile again. The children are too young to understand what happened. They just know that Daddy went away and isn't coming back. Some nights, I sit on the back porch and think about the past, about the 38 years I spent with a woman I thought I knew, about the happy memories that are now poisoned by the knowledge of what she was doing behind my back, about the family I thought I had and the family I actually have. I don't regret what I did. Barbara and Derek made their choices. They chose to lie. They chose to steal. They chose to betray the people who loved them. I just made sure they faced the consequences. But I do regret the years I lost. The trust I gave to people who didn't deserve it. The blindness that allowed me to be fooled for so long. My brother calls me every Sunday now. We talk about nothing important. Sports, weather, the grandchildren. He never mentions the photo he sent me that morning, the one that started everything. He doesn't need to. We both know what it cost me. Last month, I met a woman at my church. Her name is Margaret. She's 60 years old, a widow, and she has a laugh that reminds me of springtime. We've had coffee twice, nothing serious, just two people enjoying each other's company. I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust someone the way I trusted Barbara. I don't know if that part of me is broken forever. But I'm willing to try. I'm willing to hope, because if I learned anything from this experience, it's that hope is the last thing you lose. Even when the person you love turns out to be a stranger, even when the life you built turns out to be built on sand, hope survives. It has to. Otherwise, what's the point? My daughter asked me once if I was angry, if I hated Barbara for what she had done. I thought about it for a long time before I answered. "No," I said. "I'm not angry anymore. Anger takes too much energy. I'd rather spend that energy on the people who actually deserve it. On you, on the grandchildren, on the life we're building now. She nodded, and I saw something shift in her eyes. Something like peace. That's what I want too, she said. I want to stop being angry. I want to move forward. And that's what we're doing. Moving forward. One day at a time. One choice at a time. One act of faith at a time. Barbara will get out of prison in a few years. She'll be 65, alone, with nothing. No husband, no daughter, no grandchildren who will talk to her. She'll have the money she stole, or whatever is left of it, but money can't buy the things she lost, the family she destroyed, the love she threw away. I don't feel sorry for her. I feel sorry for the woman I thought she was, the woman who stood beside me at our wedding and promised to love me forever, the woman who held my hand when our daughter was born, the woman who cried on my shoulder when her sister died. That woman was an illusion, a character in a story that Barbara was telling, a mask she wore for 38 years. But the man I am now, he's not an illusion. He's real. He's bruised and battered and a little bit broken, but he's still standing. He's still fighting. He's still hopeful. And that's more than Barbara can say. The phone rings sometimes, late at night. I check the caller ID and see a number I don't recognize. I never answer. I don't need to hear what she has to say. Her excuses, her explanations, her hollow apologies. Some words, once spoken, can never be taken back. Some betrayals can never be forgiven. I learned that lesson the hard way. But I learned it, and I'm still here to tell the story. That's more than some people can say. My grandchildren came over for dinner last night. We made spaghetti together. The three of us crowded into my kitchen, sauce splattering everywhere. My granddaughter, who's 7, told me I was the best grandpa in the world. My grandson, who's 5, asked if I would teach him to build a birdhouse. I said yes. Of course I said yes. That's what grandfathers do. They build birdhouses and make spaghetti and tell stories about the old days when everything was different. They don't tell stories about betrayal and revenge and the darkness that lives in the hearts of people we love. Those stories I keep to myself. But late at night, when the house is quiet and the children are asleep, I sit in my office and I remember. I remember the phone call that changed everything, the photo that shattered my world, the long, patient weeks of investigation and planning, the moment when I finally confronted the people who had tried to destroy me. And I remember winning, not because I was smarter or stronger or better than them, but because I refused to give up, because I fought back, because I didn't let them get away with it. That's the moral of my story. If stories need morals, don't let them get away with it. Whatever it is, whoever they are, fight back, stand up for yourself, protect the people you love, and never, ever trust someone just because you've known them for a long time. Time doesn't create trust. Actions do. And when someone's actions reveal who they really are, believe them. I believed Barbara for 38 years. I believed the mask, not the woman behind it. I won't make that mistake again. The sun is setting now, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It's a beautiful evening, the kind of evening that makes you grateful to be alive. My daughter is coming over for dinner. The grandchildren are with her. Margaret might stop by later. Life goes on. It has to. Even after betrayal. Even after heartbreak. Even after everything you believed turns out to be a lie. Life goes on. And so do I. That's my story. The story of how I discovered that my wife of 38 years was stealing from me, cheating on me, and planning to destroy everything I had built. The story of how I fought back and won. It's not a happy story, but it's a true one. And sometimes, the true stories are the ones that matter most. Thank you for listening.